you get people coming on social media a lot, right? Doing these kind of videos. I know that there's not that many people who do these kind of. There's a lot of people who do these videos on Facebook, but for the people you know personally, there's never a lot of people who do them, right? And the ones who do them, I've noticed that the ones who spread negativity and predict the worst things to happen, predicting all the worst things, the conspiracies and the how miserable things are, and hammering what's going on in society one way or another, they're sort of regarded as like a prophet, and people eat out of the palm of their hands. And it's so easy to predict negative things happening because typically lots of negative things happen all the time. And if you're someone who, I try to be as positive as possible on here. If you're the kind of person who tries to spread positivity and predict good things and get people to see things from a better perspective, sometimes people think you're a little bit mad. But hey, I could be that guy who spreads negativity, and maybe I might get a few more followers that way. But I don't want to do that, because that's not what you need. You might feel like you want that, but that's not what you need. But it does sometimes feel like the world is going to rat shit, doesn't it? It sometimes feels like that. And it's easy to understand why. It's easy to see why, and it's easy to understand why, providing you know. But humans, us people, we always have, one way or another, found a way. We've always found a way through it and around it. And the world today, overall, is objectively better. It's objectively better. It's not subjectively better. Subjectively, where you might have an opinion and I have an opinion on the same thing, and it might differ, it's objectively better. It's a fact that the world is a more livable place now than it ever has been in history. Regardless of what you might think. It just all depends on the kind of content and information that you're consuming. Yes, a few crooks come along and spoil it. A few bad apples. It's bound to happen because there's just far more of us. The fact that there's far more of us is evidence that the world is a much more prosperous place than it used to be. That's just one fact. Progress has always happened, and it always will. And yeah, we are getting very, very intelligent, and we are getting very progressive. And, I've been reading this paper from this philosopher stroke scientist called Nick Bostrom. Now check this out. This fucking blew my mind, right? So there's this theory called the black ball in the urn theory, or the fragile world hypothesis. And what the black ball in the urn theory is it sort of puts into perspective at how intelligent that we've become, and how at risk we are of our own demise, of our own destruction. Will we as humans destroy ourselves? And you can put it in comments if you want, or say something about it. What do you think about our society or humans? Are we destroying the planet or not? And will we destroy it? When the world ends, will it be because of us? You tell me. And the black ball in the urn hypothesis is, imagine every single bit of technological advancement in human history. Imagine every single idea, every single bit of equipment that's improved the world a tiny bit. Every single little thing that's improved the world. Phones, books, ideas, ethics. Just, it doesn't even have to be a tangible thing. They all have improved humanity in their own little way, bit by bit by bit. Now in the urn, with all the balls in, all the progress, all the balls of progress are all white. And they're all in this big urn. And every single time humans come up with a new invention, a new way of thinking, a new way to drive humanity forward, or what they think is driving humanity forward. We reach into the urn and we pull out a ball. And it's a white ball because it represents progress, okay? Now, the black ball within the urn represents destruction. There will come a time in future where we get so far ahead of ourselves that we will create our own demise. We'll destroy ourselves through our own naivety, through our own incompetence, through greed, whatever it is. But that destruction will come, and it'll be too late once it's come. We will not ever be able to reverse it. So we're picking white balls out. Oh, look, we've learned how to sail a ship. There's a white ball. Oh, look, we've learned how to fly. There's a white ball. Oh, look, we've learned how to use manners and eat with a knife and fork at the dinner table. There's a white ball. Keep putting them down. Eventually we'll pick out a black ball that will wipe history, that will wipe us off the face of the earth. Now, the problem with it, like I already said, is you cannot, once you've gotten that ball out, you can't put it back, because it's knowledge. It's out there. It's out into the world. It's too late. Okay, could you consider nuclear bombs as a black ball? A nuclear bomb's a black ball that we can never put back. What do you think? What about the Aboriginal societies or the indigenous societies on the smaller islands that we've invaded over the years? Are they a black ball? You know, us sailing to those countries and conquering those little islands and causing, you know, whatever destruction to those people, to them, that was a black ball, right? But it could also be argued that, well, it wasn't a black ball for us, it was a white ball, because we managed to conquer new lands and learn new norms and gather technology and do all this other stuff. So you could argue that that's a grey ball. That's not wiped out entire humanity. Nuclear war, nukes, Sarah, atomic bombs, they're a grey ball, because yes, they are destructive, but we can harness the power of nuclear technology to our benefit, and that's probably what's going to be the thing that helps us get through the climate change problem, is nuclear energy. But it's a debatable thing, and this paper, and I can send you the PDF to it if you want. It's really sort of blows your mind. It's like a science fiction thing, but it's a real theory, because we can all agree that this is happening. We're all picking balls out one at a time, and eventually we will pick the black ball out of the urn. And when that time comes, we just cannot put it back, and it's too late. It's a case in favour of mass scale surveillance. Nobody likes the thought of mass scale surveillance. I don't like the thought of mass scale surveillance. But if that technology's out, the way that he puts it in the paper, imagine if nuclear technology was so easy to create that it was something along the lines of, you put a piece of aluminium between two pieces of glass and you put it in microwave, and that creates nuclear fission. You know, nuclear fission takes place through that process. And we're just lucky that it costs millions and millions to do, and you need so much intelligence and know-how just to create nuclear technology. We're lucky that that's the case, because if it was easy to get hold of, yes, it would be a black ball, because every fucker would use it every single time they had a fight. Al-Qaeda would have used it against us. USA would have used it against multiple other countries, etc. Anyway, so it's interesting. So even though humanity is progressing forwards, there's always a chance that we can pull that black ball out of the urn. Do you think that maybe Donald Trump a black ball? Could he be considered a black ball that's been pulled out of the urn? Maybe, probably more like a grey ball. I mean, I am so glad that he's been found out. I'm so glad that it breaks my heart to say this, because, you know, 4 or 5 people died the other day when they went to the Washington, you know, Capitol Hill building. So people had to die at the hands of the president. No one's ever done that before. Not one president's ever been arrested before whilst in office. And I've got a feeling he could be the first one. But I'm so glad that he's been found out. And it's funny, because all this shit that happened the other day, all conspiracists and all his cult that follow him, there's still people saying that it's like a false flag thing, like a false flag, that it's all been set up and the state actors from the far left and whatever bollocks language they all use. And it's just funny. I mean, I like to call them conspiritualists. The cult that Donald Trump has developed for himself, that he's created, and the QAnon cult that surrounds it and supports it, I think they're just short of a good religion to join. They're just bored, and whatever their local community thinks about religion is probably a little bit. It probably looks down its nose at religion a little bit. There's a little bit of, nobody really wants to go to church because they don't want to be seen to be that person who does that. So they just start becoming conspiritualists instead of an actual spiritualist. It's funny. But Donald Trump, he was the murder weapon for the right against the left, because the left was getting too fucking irritating, too holier than thou, too many rules, too much bullshit, too much control from the left. So really the right used Donald Trump as a murder weapon, and hopefully we can put all that chapter behind us, because the thing that people don't realise about politics and all this kind of shit, right, is that the democracy is the most important thing of all. Even if Donald Trump was the Messiah, even if he was exactly all the amazing things that everyone who supports him wishes and hopes that he is, even if he was all those things, even if he was going to bring down the paedophile rings and fucking the lizard people who control the earth and, just make the world go around when even though it's flat and all the other shit, and stop chemtrails, and even if Donald Trump is that guy to deliver that, the fact that he got voted out, democracy, the system of democracy, the system that we've created over eons of time as humans, is more important than one person or one policy. The system is always more important. That's why anyone who's in a union, if they don't strike because they don't agree with something the union said, you're wrong, because you're putting yourself above. You're putting yourself in line too much with that one thing that you're deciding to not strike over, when the union, the system, is more powerful than your little idea to not strike in that moment. Does that make sense? The bigger picture is always more important. And look, if you're feeling down about everything, it's understandable. It's understandable, because what most people do is you're too busy focusing on what might come in the future, too busy trying to predict the future. And what happens is no one can predict the future. We don't have a crystal ball. We're not clairvoyants. So we just end up like this frazzled mess, pissed off with the entire world. And what I always say about everything like this is why I read books, because books look backwards, but they allow you to learn, and then learn the messages and the patterns and the lessons of history, and then hope to not repeat them in future. So it kind of puts you in more control. Whereas when you sort of looking to the future all the time, looking at the news, you're bound to get blagged. The thing about democracy, there's no two nations in the history of the world that are democratic that have ever gone to war. No democratic nations have ever gone to war with each other. So what does that tell you about democracy? The thing is, it's hard to measure progress. Progress happens over decades. Progress happens over long periods of time. Whereas bad news, and the news is 24/7. It's 24 hours a day. It's pumping into our eyeballs 24/7. It's creating bad messages all the time. If we're only allowed one news bulletin for every 50 years, right? It would not give us any bad news if we could only have one. But because we have bad news every single day, it needs to keep our attention by giving us shitty message, death, blood, scandal, things that are going to keep our attention. If it bleeds, it leads. But if we had one news bulletin for the past 50 years, it could only really give us the good news. In the last 50 years, right? So 50 years from now, so 1970, is it? 1971, we've defeated communism, okay? If there were a news bulletin that was every 50 years, if it went out today, this is what it'd say. We defeated communism. We've had the least amount of wars and war deaths in the history of humanity in the last 50 years. Capitalism and science have lifted 2.3 billion people out of extreme poverty. We've eradicated smallpox and polio, diseases that wiped out countless amounts of people and caused countless amounts of misery. We've wiped those off the entire face of the earth because of vaccinations. Life expectancy in the last 50 years has gone up by 15 years. So we're living 15 years longer just within 50 years. We've had the internet, which has given opportunity, education, and has connected billions of people all at the same time. These are just some of the things that have happened over the last 50 years. But we don't hear about these things all over the news because it doesn't keep your attention for long. If they were going to report the bad news from the last 50 years, they'd just think of it as growing pains. We'd think of it as growing pains. Oh, a few people died in order for us to get that vaccine. Well, it saved billions, so, well, maybe it was some growing pains. We won't really care about the bad news from 30 years ago because it's growing pains. And this is what we're going through now in real time. We're going through growing pains. You're all right. You're fine. You're fine. Just trust me, just stop watching the news, stop looking at so much social media, and you will be absolutely fine. Your mindset will change around from negative to positive. Humans, us, me and you, we have to fail forwards. We fail and fail and fail and fail and struggle and fail. And that is life. It's always going to be life. And I can promise you, if you read books rather than watching YouTube videos and watching the news, your perspective on life will improve no end.